Hi, my name is Ron Falconi, and I am the host of Meet Your Neighbor. I had this idea back in the fall of '06 where I wanted to interview local politicians and local business people so that all of you could have the opportunity to meet your neighbor. We have a very special guest today. She is our Medina County Commissioner, and her name is Pat Geissman. Commissioner Geissman, welcome to the studios today.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for inviting me.
How are you doing today?
Very good.
That's great. Pat, can you tell us something about yourself that maybe not too many people know about you?
That question was recently asked, and I said, I love to do laundry.
Oh, you love to do laundry?
Yes. But there is something that probably most people really don't know about me that was life-changing for me. It helped me become the person that I am today.
Okay.
And that was being a Bob Hope girl.
A Bob Hope girl?
Yes.
What is a Bob Hope girl?
Well, back in 1970, which has been 42 years ago, there was an ad in the Akron Beacon Journal looking for women to participate in Bob Hope coming to the Cherry Blossom Festival in Barberton.
Okay.
And my husband happened to see it. And he brought the newspaper to me, and he said, I've always told you you had the most gorgeous legs. He says, why don't you do this? So I went with a friend. 350 women showed up, and I was one of the ones chosen.
So what did the Bob Hope girl have to do then?
Well, we did TV commercials, radio commercials, photography events, interrupted councils with a little dance and song routine. And of course, we performed with Bob Hope when he was in town for the Cherry Blossom Festival, which was absolutely wonderful getting to know him, as I have been fortunate enough to be around a lot of celebrities, but he is the one that really was just wonderful.
What was Bob Hope like?
Very down to earth. I don't like using the word common, but just like you and I. I mean, he was easy to talk to, very warm. When I was in his trailer, he pulled me down to sit on his lap. And of course, I already had 4 children at that time, 4 sons. And he says, oh, to have a mama like you. And he was just so cute and sweet, and really enjoyed performing with him. And we had other opportunities, but unfortunately, the Kent State shootings occurred that weekend. And so the other engagements were all canceled. But we sure had fun.
Well, that's good.
In fact, years later, I wanted Bob to come to a golf tournament that the American Cancer Society was putting on, and I was the executive director, so I was trying to get this all together. He wasn't able to do that, even though he was at the Front Row Theater that week. But
the Front Row, yes.
Yeah, he was performing there. And he sent me 4 tickets. And a resident from Wadsworth, Tony Perry, and his wife, and my husband Lee and I went to the Front Row Theater with those tickets. They were right down in front, and he came out and sang "Thanks for the Memory," looking right at me. And it's like, oh my gosh, So he really impressed me.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful experience.
Yes, that sounds wonderful.
It was.
You mentioned your husband, Lee. Can you tell us about your family?
Yes, Lee and I have been married for over 50 years now. We have 4 sons, and my husband worked in transportation all during his career with the Norfolk and Southern Railroad. Okay. And he's retired now, and he goes just about everywhere with me.
Now, where do you live in Medina County, and how long have you lived there?
We moved to Lodi in 1966. Okay. And have lived there ever since. We first lived across the street from the Methodist Church, and I am Methodist, so that was kind of convenient with 4 little boys because my husband worked on Sunday, but I wanted to make sure that I got those boys to church. And we lived there about 6 years before we moved into our home where we're at now. And it was on a dead-end street for a long time, and with 4 little boys, that was kind of nice. Yes. Because the first house was right on the hill, which was what we could afford, but it was scary, I found out later, to have all that traffic going by.
Sure. Pat, can you tell our viewers out there, tell us what does a county commissioner do?
Well, basically what the county commissioner does is spend the taxpayers' dollars
Okay.
wisely.
Okay.
We make sure that the safety concerns are met, and there's safe roads, safe water, but basically spending those tax dollars as conservatively as we can,
Sure,
and to
sure.
get the most out of the money for the county.
How long have you been commissioner now?
This is my 20th year, believe it or not.
20th year.
Yes. I just feel so fortunate that voters have had enough confidence in me to re-elect me, and I'm running right now for my 6th term.
Wow.
Which would give me 24 years. And you take what I did on council, and because I was in Lodi Village Council for 5 years.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes.
So you got your start on Lodi Village Council first.
Yes, yes.
Then the commissioner's office. Then after that,
Right.
can you tell us how does the county commissioner affect the lives of everyday people here in Medina County?
Well, I think we have a direct, effect on residents, and it's one of the reasons why I've never wanted to go any higher other than being a commissioner, because I have asked to run for state representative by the Republican Party here,
Okay.
but declined because I enjoy being right here among the grassroots, you might say. Also, I enjoy and love my husband and want to be home instead of down in Columbus.
Sure, sure.
But the effect that we have, there are so many things that we can do that really can make a difference in people's lives. And I never started out to be a commissioner that was involved in human relationships and such. That never really entered my mind. I just wanted to be a good commissioner. And what I found out was that the things I have been involved in the last 20 years all had to do with the human relationships. And that's where, even though it may be something that a commissioner doesn't necessarily have to get involved in, but some of the task forces that I have started definitely have made a difference in people's lives. The Railroad Safety Task Force, I
Yes.
can't tell you because I don't know how many lives we have saved, because we have, the task force now has made improvements on 23 crossings since we organized in 2002, plus another 20 that federal funds completely paid for. Because we keep criteria up to date on a web page. And all of these improvements have been done without spending $1 of local tax dollars.
So that's wonderful.
So it's been about $8 million that have been brought back, and 4 of those were directly from the Railroad Safety Task Force. But that's where you get involved and you have an effect on people. Just about any decision that we make in regards to roads has an effect on people. Through the sanitary engineer and our water and sewer has an effect on people. What goes on at the central processing facility has an effect on people. And so, yes, we do. And I love the local part here.
Yes.
And I listen. I listen to what people say. That's how I know what direction to go in.
Pat, how often do the commissioners meet, and can anyone show up at a commissioners meeting?
Oh, it's always open, and we encourage people to come to the commissioners' meetings.
Okay.
We have them every Monday. I think the Ohio Revised Code requires us to have 50 a year, and we have one every Monday. And if it falls on a holiday, then we have it on a Tuesday or a Thursday, depending on what the commissioners' schedules are.
Right.
But it is something that we would encourage anyone to come to, because when you see our meetings on television, they're kind of boring because we have already discussed those issues at a discussion session at the previous commissioners' meetings. So once we pass resolutions and listen to anyone in the audience that has come to make comment to us, we go directly into a discussion session. And that's where the meat of everything we do is really,
So a lot of the stuff is behind the scenes, really.
Yes, that's what should be televised. But we haven't figured out how to do that yet. So we have the boring out there. Other than the people that come in, they're always interesting when they come in and make comment to us.
Pat, what do you think is your biggest accomplishment so far as Medina County Commissioner?
Wow. I guess something that I'm doing right now because of the economy and the circumstances, I think feeding Medina County is probably one of the biggest things that has many, many people involved, not only volunteering to help those that are hungry, but just in taking care of two programs that our executive director, Sandy Calvert, has started is Staples for Seniors, taking food to seniors. And the other one then is the Weekenders program, which is for those children that are on free lunches at school, are getting a weekend backpack to take home with food, not only enough for themselves, but for mom and dad too, so that they got food for the weekend. Because these kids, some of them only have a meal at school, and that's it. So like, what do they do all summer? What do they do on the weekends? And we've got at least 400 people involved in those two programs. And Meade Wilkins, who is the Director of Job and Family Services, made comment to me that almost everyone that's on food stamps has been coming out and going to the distribution that we have once a month through the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank. So I think he mentioned like 13,000 people at one time. So, you know, that has an impact. And so I'm real proud that that's my little baby. I had a vision, and first it was Cindy McGowan from Cornerstone Wellness that had written a paper to tell me what she would do with Feeding Medina County if indeed I gave her that opportunity, because we were looking for a 501c3 in the beginning, and now we have our own 501c3, and it's been quite a program, and it just is growing by leaps and bounds.
It's wonderful.
So I would say probably at this point, that probably is the most significant thing that I have done to help, that I know I'm helping people.
Pat, what do you see as the biggest issue facing Medina County right now?
Oh, that's balancing a budget.
Balancing a budget.
Yes, as you know, as a councilman in Brunswick, that we've had a lot of state cuts. And we've had to cut our programs. Well, I think 2009 was the first year we started cutting, and we have cut back every year to the point that you just can't cut anymore.
Right.
So balancing a budget, I would say, is our biggest problem.
For being commissioner now for what, over 20 years? Or
this is my 20th year.
This is your 20th year right now. I'm sure that there are positives and negatives to the job. What do you see as some of the positives?
I love helping people. I think my whole adult life and my whole career has been around helping people. I'm a former realtor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
So Bob Hope girl and realtor.
Yes. And also I served with the Lodi Fire Department for 22 years as an EMT.
Oh, okay.
That was helping people.
Sure.
And I just sometimes think that when you're in a public office such as I am, and there are people out there that do have problems getting things resolved with the government, but if they make a phone call to me, I just tell them, I will help you resolve your problem. And it may not be resolved the way you would like it to be resolved, but we will get it resolved. And I keep my word. My integrity is probably the most important personal thing that I feel I can offer.
Sure. Pat, what are the negatives to the job?
I hate the politics.
You hate the politics of it?
I absolutely hate the politics, and try to stay out of it. I just try to stay out of it. I do what I can to help other Republican candidates when they're running. And I try not to let politics get in the way of any issue I'm trying to make a decision on. And so that was an easy one to answer for you, because I did.
Do you like being called a politician?
No, not at all. I am an elected official, and I hate the word politician. It just kind of goes with some of the other things that have negatives.
Pat, tell us, what are some of the things that you like to do for fun?
Well, I do love to travel.
Oh.
And we've been to quite a few places. We've been to Europe twice.
Oh.
And
where in Europe have you gone?
we spent 2 weeks in Switzerland.
Oh.
And we
I
spent a
love
week in France and a week in Holland.
Holland.
Those were very interesting. I'd love to go to England. Haven't done that yet.
Where in Switzerland did you go?
Everywhere. They took us everywhere.
Oh.
And,
did you take one of the tours, or did you just go off on yourself?
No, we took a tour. It was
Okay.
a guided tour, which was kind of nice.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Everything is laid out for you, and you just go out
Yes.
and just have a good time. And
Right.
where in France did you go?
We were everywhere there too. Paris, I enjoyed Paris, although it was interesting to see some of the sights I saw in Paris. It's like, here's this very good-looking man in a suit like you, and he turned around from the street, and I realized he was going to the bathroom. It's like, oh my gosh. And right there's one of those public toilets, you know. It's, why is he doing that? So, and then another thing I found out about people in France, and Holland especially, they try to pretend they can't understand you because
They can or cannot?
they pretend they cannot understand
cannot.
you
Oh, yes.
because they don't want to talk to us. They see the movies with all the shooting and, you know, all the bad things, and even the Westerns, they still think that we have things going on like the Wild West. So they kind of ignore, yes.
Misconceptions about
Yes.
Americans.
We were trying to find a particular restaurant, and this couple was ahead of us, and there were 6 of us walking together. They were scared out of their wits of us. Oh, yeah, they did. I think they thought we might do something to them, is all I could figure out. But no, they do not have a high feeling toward Americans. Yeah. But this business of I don't speak, especially in Paris, I don't speak American, don't speak English.
No, my wife and I traveled to France a few years ago, and we just stayed in the Paris area and just had a wonderful time, and got to see all the sights also. So we also love traveling as well. That's why, you know, when you said you went to Europe, I was like, wow, this is pretty.
Yeah.
It's so much fun traveling.
Yeah, another thing I like to do for fun is needlework, being creative. I take my things to the fair, and I started doing that in 1980. And someone said, your work is so beautiful, you need to take it to the fair. Well, I'd never even considered that. And I had 6 items in 1980 and decided, okay, I'm going to take these to the fair. Do you know I won 6 blue ribbons?
Oh.
And so I came home and I started the projects for the next year right away. So I like to crochet. That is my favorite thing to do in needlework.
That's wonderful. How did that come about?
My mother was a crocheter, and I started early crocheting.
That's good. Pat, for everyone on the show, I'd like to play a game of fill in the blank.
Oh, okay.
Okay. When I was a child, I blank.
When I was a child, my family moved all the time.
Okay.
I was in a school for no more than a year at a time, which was very difficult to make and keep friends. And I guess that's the first thing that pops into my mind. When I was a child, my family was moving a lot.
Are you originally from this area?
No, I was born in Dorton, Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
My father was a Baptist minister, and now I'm a Methodist. And my father died when I was young.
Oh.
And back in the hills of Kentucky, they certainly didn't have any financial programs in the local Baptist church. And my mother went on aid for dependent children until she met someone after World War II that was taking care of one of my older brothers. I had two older brothers that were in World War II, and he nursed them in Detroit.
Oh, wow.
So we were in Michigan, we were in Indiana, we were in Illinois, and
There's a lot of moving around.
Yes, a lot of moving around.
On the other side of the spectrum, when I retire, I blank.
When I retire, I think I would like, first of all, make sure my basement gets cleaned out good. I've been working on it and I can't seem to ever get done. And another thing, when I retire, I'd like to do more traveling. There's still a few places Lee and I would like to visit. And then I want to sew. I bought one of these sewing machines that does everything. And I took lessons, but I don't get a chance to get on it very often. So I know when I really seriously want to start sewing, I'm going to have to go back and take lessons again. So I'd like to do that when I retire.
That's nice. Well, are there any other places that you want to visit but still haven't traveled to yet?
I'd love to go to England.
England, yes.
And I wouldn't mind taking a cruise on the Mediterranean.
Oh, that would be...
Everyone that's been there, and we haven't done that. We cruised down to the Caribbean because my wedding anniversary is February the 2nd. So we always take off in February and go south. So we've probably cruised somewhere between 12 and 15 times in the Caribbean.
So you've probably been all over the Caribbean then, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Pat, can you give any neighborly advice to people who are watching right now in Brunswick, Brunswick Hills, Wadsworth Township, or people watching on the internet?
Well, being a good neighbor means that you're always there for someone if they need you. And I think a person needs to laugh often, love much.
Oh, yes.
And what's the third one? I have that little plaque in my dining room because I think it really is important. And I think long-lasting relationships, whether it's a husband and wife or whether it's a neighbor, is that you can laugh at things.
Yes.
And
you have to have a sense of humor.
And be serious when that's needed also.
Sure. Commissioner Pat Geissman, thank you for coming down to the studios today.
Oh, it's been my privilege.
My name is Ron Falconi, and I'm the host of Meet Your Neighbor, and I wanted to thank Commissioner Pat Geissman for coming down to the studios today. Now, if there's anything more profound to be said, my name is Ron Falconi. I'm signing off. Bye, guys.